I'm going to request control. My request for control was not accepted.
Really?
Okay,
I
here.
stopped presenting, so I didn't get any requests.
How about now, David? Can you get it? There you go.
Got it. Okay. Hello and welcome to this session on ADA and accessibility. My name is Dave Denny. I'm an instructional designer for e-learning at Connect Campus. And we are very happy to be facilitating this session for you. My co-presenter today is Austin Haynes, and I'll let him quickly introduce himself right now before I start.
Hey, I'm Austin Haynes. I'm on the team with David, and David's going to present some ADA stuff, and then I'm going to present some UDL, Universal Design and Learning stuff. Thanks,
Now,
Dave.
yeah, okay. Oh, thanks, Austin. Uh, the agenda might change just a little bit because I think Austin's going to add something, but it's always good to add things. So uh, this agenda may not be exactly like it goes. So for this past decade, has seen an increased emphasis on higher education institutions and technology access for students with disabilities. Colleges and universities nationally, including Harvard, MIT, Princeton, Berkeley, and locally, the University of North Texas, have all been subject to lawsuits and compliance reviews resulting from access barriers to web and information technology resources for students with disabilities. Some accessibility features that you're likely to already be familiar with include some of these: zooming in, touch screens, closed captioning, text to speech. We all see these things now. They're very ubiquitous now. So in 2010, the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights (OCR) jointly published a Dear Colleague letter to all university and college presidents reminding them of their non-discrimination obligations, specifically as they relate to technology access. This letter informed institutions that it is a violation of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, specifically Section 504, and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, or ADA, that if students with disabilities are not afforded the same opportunity to participate in a manner as that afforded to others. So basically, it says that it is unacceptable for universities to use emerging technology without insisting that this technology be accessible to all students. So the challenge now facing colleges is straightforward. How does an institution meet its Section 504 and ADA non-discrimination obligations for individuals with disabilities when developing, using, and purchasing technology products? So first, let's take a short look at the history of disability compliance in the US. And very short, I promise. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 was the first major legislative effort to secure an equal playing field for individuals with disabilities. This legislation provides a wide range of services for persons with physical and cognitive disabilities in all aspects of life. Access ramps into buildings is an example of a direct result of this act. Section 504 is an amendment to this Rehabilitation Act of 1973 that specifically applies to schools that receive federal funds. Under Section 504, students with disabilities have the right to reasonable accommodations. The Americans with Disability Act, or ADA, is a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability. It affords similar protections against discrimination to Americans with disabilities, just as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 made discrimination based on race, religion, sex, national origin, or other characteristics illegal. In addition, unlike the Civil Rights Act, the ADA also requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations to employees with disabilities and imposes accessibility requirements on public accommodations. This is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. In addition to the legislation that we just talked about, TCC also strives to follow the WCAG guidelines for making web-based learning content more accessible. Now, if you look in chat, you'll notice that I posted this as an image, so feel free to download and keep this as a little guide for yourself. And while this set of guidelines has been in place with the primary aim of making online content easier access for people with different needs, it is also meant for multi-device use, such as content adapted to a range of portable devices, such as cell phones or tablets. So this is where we move from accessibility into universal design. And Austin's going to talk a little bit more about both of these things. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and unshare.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to load mine up. So let me load up my let me get it started. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Let's see if oh yeah, sorry. It would help if I shared, actually.
Okay, it's up.
Okay, so you're seeing that blue slide. I'm just making sure because I'm in that presentation mode. You're seeing that blue slide only, not my presenter's mode, right?
Right.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about universal design, and it relates right back to what David was saying about law and order in the online teaching environment. And so first thing I want to say is this is a presentation I made to give at conferences about this. And one of the things that I do whenever I go to a conference is present this in conjunction with some other presentations on this subject. And also because I'm presenting at conferences and they're taking pictures of me, I like for the colors to be really colorful, and I like for there to be a bunch of animations in there. So we're gonna go through some fun stuff here in a minute and kind of just talk about some history of this in a fun way. But there's also an idea behind this, and it's the baking in idea. You are welcome to this presentation, and the presentation is just on universal design and learning. But this is also in conjunction with another presentation I do on ADA compliance strategies, and that walks you through some specific tools training. And one of the tool trainings that I introduce is using the accessibility checker. So this presentation, when I send it to you, is purposely not ADA compliant because I want you to, number one, reconfigure it for your use to present, but also I want you to use the ADA checker to fix the things, and we cover that in another session. So we can do that session some other time whenever y'all are in the mood or have the inquiry for it. Just let Dave know. He's the interim instructional design lead, and he'll be glad to schedule a session where we can do that. That being said, the most important thing to understand about this session is this session is going to raise a lot more questions than it gives answers. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in the best possible way. Dave and I have both been through as much ADA compliance training as we can find that is certified and you get a certificate for it. And I would say that both of us would tell you that it is a journey, not a destination. And the journey is you're just learning things all the time. You're constantly presented with challenges. Every day I'm presented with challenges. Since COVID happened, I've been presented with quite a few challenges as far as helping people with ADA stuff. I think that that's good. I'm always learning to use new tools and learning to interact with content in a completely different way. So David talked to you a little bit about the law, the legal requirements. I'm going to talk to you about the principles first, and then we're going to revisit that idea of law for just a second. But UDI principles are three main principles. Principle 1 is provide multiple means of representation. We're going to talk about that quite a bit here today. And that's the what of learning. That's what's happening whenever you're making a video and then you put closed captioning on it so that you have somebody who has a hearing disability who's able to use the closed captioning technology to get the content of the video in real time. It is also live captioning, and as we know, live captioning is not perfect. I know we can do live captioning, I think, in these Teams meetings now, and I've watched, it's actually much better. And I was just having a conversation with Allegra about this last night in relation to some tools, because I was looking at some tools that do captioning for us that were invested in the district, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. Multiple means of representation means the what of learning. Learners differ in the ways that they perceive and comprehend information that is presented to them. That's vital to understand, and we'll talk about that specifically at the end of this presentation because I want to talk to you about gathering data. COVID, the one thing that it has done is it has forced all of us into a distance learning environment. And distance learning is great when it's well established and you get to go through it at your pace and really build something. That is not what COVID allowed us to do. So the one thing that COVID has allowed us to do is by being forced into that environment, we're all active learners, and it's all brought us back to what it means to be a student again. So you may be in a session with somebody who's a tech person like Dave or myself, and you may say, well, these guys are talking way above my head. At that point, I would just say to you, please tell us to slow down or to revisit that subject. Or like I said before, we're always open to having a discussion. But it's something I want to keep in mind when we're just dealing with students in general. I work in technology all the time. I'm not a big technology person. I don't think it solves all our problems. I think the real challenge is good pedagogical practices. So that's where y'all are strong. And so I just want to help you translate those. So does Dave, Allegra, Natalie. Translate those skills that you're so good at, that thing that you're looking for, that recognition in a student's eye, even from a distance, that they got a concept, that they're understanding and that they're starting to weave that into the thread of how they think about things. So that brings us to principle 2, which is provide multiple means of action and expression, the how of learning. Learners differ in the ways that they can navigate a learning environment and express what they know. In ADA compliance, that could simply mean somebody who has a vision impairment is navigating the course using only the audio of the course. And so they're using arrows instead of necessarily the main part of the keyboard, and using search engine features and things like that. And so how we build out content and practical standings is going to help us be more effective in the way we give students access to information. And principle 3 is provide multiple means of engagement. But if you look and you really think about all three of these in working in consort with each other, they dovetail into each other perfectly. And it's a philosophy I want to leave you with. And that's the why of learning. So we've got the what in provide multiple means of representation, the how in provide multiple means of action and expression, and the why of learning and provide multiple means of engagement. And we're going to talk more about those, but it's a crucial element of learning, and learners differ markedly in the ways in which they can be engaged or motivated to learn. And that can simply be something like somebody who may be on their third trip through a math course may get bored at the beginning because they may finally have that first part of college algebra down. And so they may not be taking in the information as readily as they could. And if they've switched instructors, they may miss an opportunity to understand something that may better make them understand key concepts coming up. And so the way we interact with our students through multiple means of engagement can simply mean instead of just reading, we're presenting them with an audio file or a video file, or maybe a PowerPoint that is a PowerPoint show. It's different ways of presenting the information to them, and none of them are wrong. And don't think that when you build something that a year from now it's no good. You always want to save what you're building, because that version of it, number one, you're going to evolve, and that evolution is going to help you make a better version of it. But that first version of it may be something you want to keep in your course, because if you look at data from, and we're like, once again, we're going to talk about this then. If you look at data from maybe embedding a survey or a non-graded quiz, you can use that element to refine it, to make it better, to get those students who may be on their second or third journey through your subject matter. And so I want to talk to you about catch-up models for a second here. This is something that I like to use is an element of universal design and learning to explain this to people. So this is the ketchup bottle we're used to. This is the ketchup bottle we're now growing to get used to, and most of us wouldn't accept anything but that ketchup bottle. The key thing there is that the other one is upside down. But we're going to talk about that for a second. So the old glass bottle, some of you may not realize this, had a secret in it. And this is where it gets crazy. And this is what universal design is. But this is something that most people don't know. And I just discovered this one night at a restaurant because a waitress pointed this out to me. But if you look on the bottle right there, you can see a raised 57 in the glass. And so if you strike on the 57 while you turn the bottle at an angle like you're doing when you're putting out ketchup, that 57 is placed there in the raised glass at that area because that's what helps relieve the pressure once it's turned at an angle. If you hit the bottom, you're actually bringing the ketchup back into the top of the bottle, which is what we often will do. But if you strike right there at that angle of the bottle, that helps bring the air up to the top of the bottle, which is now the bottom of the bottle, which is now the top of the bottle when you turn it upside down. And that's what helps release the ketchup. So that secret shouldn't have been a secret because that's something that the consumer would want to know for years. Because when I was a kid, you'd be in restaurants and there'd be knives stuck up in the ketchup bottle trying to get the ketchup to release. So that brings us to the upside down ketchup bottle, which was introduced in 2003. And the key was a valve top that prevented leaking. The top was invented by Paul Brown of Midland, Michigan. Mr. Brown originally intended the top to be used for storing shampoo upside down. He thought it would be a good idea for hotels, and he thought he was going to make $1 million by building a modulated system that dispersed shampoo and conditioner in the shower, and so that the hotels could save money on shampoo and conditioner. He finally got the engineering to work on model number 112, and he sold the design of the valve for $13 million to the Hind Corporation, which had taken 128 years to turn the ketchup bottle upside down. It's important to understand we don't have to wait that long to ask questions. And so that's what universal design does for us. So Dave talked a little bit about the legal reason that we do universal design, which was the ADA compliant standards. But in 1998, they also added the Assistive Technology Act, and the term universal design was included in there as an afterthought because design at that point had been introduced years and years. Universal design had been introduced as a theory, and that's why you get things like ramps and automatic doors at loading docks and things like that, and in grocery stores to assist people with special needs. But universal design has started to become a concept and a philosophy in design standards because if you put that in the beginning, there is less need to redesign as you move forward and build things. And that's what's going to happen as we're moving forward into our new LMS. And so what I'm going to tell you now may not sound like I'm trying to help you in the future right now, but I am, because what I'm going to point out to you, there are ways to do some of these things in our current iteration of Blackboard. There are ways not to do some of these things, but these are things coming in the future that you'll have access to. So why universal design? The true reason is every college is required to comply with the Americans with Disability Act, but most colleges are challenged with identifying appropriate standards and resources to implement. Simply put, who knows what we're supposed to do to apply ADA? So speaking to the real world situation once again of COVID, as soon as we went home, we knew there was going to be an immediate need for ADA compliance because a lot of our students who have ADA requirements, a lot of them tend to take courses face-to-face so that they actually have an instructor they can engage with to help them with challenges in their course. I don't know what the number is. I know that it was considerable. We had quite a few students who dropped after COVID because of this. And we have quite a few students who didn't enroll this semester because they were hoping to wait COVID out. But now that we're not officially coming back until the summer of next year, I would look for an uptick in students with ADA needs in enrolling in your courses. And I would recommend that required thing become something that you're mindful of, because being mindful of accessibility requirements creates a better experience for all students. And what I would say first here, and this is a simple thing you can do in your announcements for your course moving forward, not just in Blackboard, even in Canvas as we move into that as our LMS. include a message specifically targeted to your student population to let them know that you want them to reach out to you if they have an ADA need. Yes, there is the district requirement for that it be in the syllabus. We have the SARS office and their accessibility statement and things like that. But a simple statement from you, a simple sentence, a simple mention, a simple announcement with your email, hot link or hyperlink right there at the bottom of it saying, if you have needs, please click here and send your information to me so we can start a discussion and maybe word it that way, so that they know you are open to having a discussion with them, because ADA requirement can, for some, can be completely different. You may have somebody with a hearing disability and they may ask for some specificity in what they want as far as their interactions with you. And once you just start using the terms like discussion, you're going to open them up to a two-sided communication, and that's going to grow you and the student and your ability to meet their ADA needs. So that being said, what is universal design? It's a concept that grew from the field of architecture, has recently emerged as a paradigm for designing instructional methods, curriculum, and assessment that are welcoming and accessible to students with a wide range of characteristics. That's important. That's why I mentioned discussion there just a second ago, including those related to race, ethnicity, native language, gender, age, and disability. I want to talk about that for a second, because highlight those words, and that is how it was all designed. So the first thing that they said when they started talking about ADA needs in relation to universal design and learning, they started with that sequence that way: race, ethnicity, native language, gender, age, and disability. How we came to start dealing with it, though, was like this. We started with disability first. We went to native language. We've gone to gender, sort of. We haven't even started to address race, ethnicity, and age. We're on the cusp of starting to talk about those things now. And so if you take those letters, you can spell Dingria, but I'm just kidding there because we like acronyms in education, but you could spell danger with it. But what I want you to notice is we're going to take these in the way that we've dealt with them in relation to COVID, but also the way we've dealt with them just in bringing students into an online environment. So the first thing we dealt with is disability. So we started to get technology like JAWS, which is a screen reader, and a Braille reader, and it has a display feature which will read text on an image, a text description on an image. And then you brought in companies like Dragon. But I want to talk to you about these two companies. So both of these companies were basically generated to create an ADA environment and to mitigate ADA needs, vision impairment, hearing impairment, things like that. Okay. But I want to show you something here. And Dave, will you let me know if you can hear the audio when I start to play this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an ad from Dragon here. And so I want you to listen to the way this is.
My name is Jane Scasebrook. I'm a specialist teacher. I also go into schools.
That's good, Austin.
Beautiful. Thank you, buddy.
Dragon software. And I also go into lots of secondary schools in the area where I assess children for what we call access arrangements. I work with university students, GCSE and A-level students, and some people in the workplace. The majority of my students will have dyslexia or dyspraxia. I also work a lot with Asperger's students. Dragon is particularly helpful to people who have either poor handwriting or slow handwriting or slow typing. I speak Dragon at 130 words per minute, and I type by hand at about 28 words per minute. Most school children type at a speed of about 20 words a minute. So if you can actually improve your typing speed from 20 words a minute to 130 words a minute, it speaks for itself. The technology has improved massively over the years. The more you use it, the more perfect it becomes. Lots of dyslexic and dyspraxic learners have very good verbal skills. They can't always put them into the language that they want to. So by using Dragon, it enables you to perhaps say what you're trying to say, and then you can go back and fill in the bits that are missing. It's far more intelligent. For me, it's a method of improving my efficiency, but for students with learning difficulties, it enables them to access education and enables them to demonstrate their subject knowledge. It's a huge confidence booster because they can actually get their thoughts onto paper. I had a boy who was obviously dyspraxic and his handwriting was atrocious. I recommended Dragon, and that night he wrote me an email using it. So it's just opened all the doors for him. It's an enabler. That's what it does. It enables people to cross divides and demonstrate how good they are at things.
So
My name is Jane Scasebrook. I'm a specialist teacher.
Sorry.
I also go into.
Sorry. So I want you to notice there, they're even taking the idea of universal design and learning there into their ad campaign. Number one, they're saying access, and they're using the word access instead of accessibility, because that's what it's about. She's talking about it, and she's not talking about it in a way of I have a disability that limits my ability to type. She's just talking about the natural ability of typing for her as her ability to type 28 words a minute versus speaking, I think she said 145 or something like that. It's a different way of thinking of the technology, and it's a way of engaging it at a universal design and learning strategy. And these things are becoming more and more commonplace. Jaws and Dragon are starting to build their marketing campaigns in this way because this technology is becoming more readily available directly in browsers like Google Chrome and features like that. And because of that, as we evolve past Blackboard, you're going to see a light jump almost, literally like a light year jump in what we're going to be able to do as instructors and instructional designers when we move to Canvas. So I want to talk about that for a second, sorry. And so we looked at disability, now we're going to look at native language in relation to tools. So talking about Blackboard first, because it does not have any language translation in it, but we all know Google Translate now. We're familiar with that tool. And that tool is being used to translate content for students in other languages. And that's the best we can do now, and that's a good tool. But coming, what we'll have is in Canvas, and this, like I said, is going to sound like an ad for Canvas. It's built into the LMS of Canvas to translate language by using language translation tools, and they're actually just tying right into Google Translate. So the reason I tell you Canvas coming up is because we're a year away from that. So that may sound discouraging, but I want you to be aware of it. But I want to take you back to here, to here, Google Translate, which is available to you now just through your Google Chrome browser. So you can take your content right into Google Translate and translate it for your students. This may not be a challenge right now because we don't have very many international students that are weighing on our faculty that I know of. We may have a tremendous amount, and if I don't know that, I'm sorry for speaking so freely about that. But I want to say that this tool coming up is going to help us mitigate that. So the next thing was gender. Okay, same thing. And this is not available to us now. This is that challenge that you have if you have a student who identifies in a different way with their gender. Right now, you just kind of have to make a note for yourself in your interactions with them and make sure that you're careful in the way that you communicate. And that's great. But with the new Canvas LMS, it is actually built right into the technology. So you would go to settings, enable personal pronouns, add pronouns option. And if you look down here at the lower left, you can add none, he, she, her, he, him, they, them, no pronouns. And you can set that so that any emails going to that student will automatically change pronouns to meet the student's needs and requirements and requests. And this is just a tool that will allow you to have more successful engagements with your students without putting a burden on you of having to mitigate a message in a different way or sieve a message in a different way and recreate an email in a way that's engaging the student. And it just takes another thing off of your plate. So the next thing is race. And this is where I wanted to bring us to. These three have not been really dealt with technology. And moving forward at this point, this is where we're kind of in the Wild West, but I want to give you some strategies to help you be successful in the future, but also help us help you be successful in the future. So first thing to help deal with these issues is thing one is students may not realize that they are struggling to retain the material until they fail the first exam, with multiple assessments in class, students practice asking themselves metacognitive questions such as, how do I know I understand something? And they may not ask it exactly in that word, but in that structure, but that's what they're asking themselves. As the instructor, you also benefit by learning immediately how many students are having trouble with a particular concept or skill. For example, how will you change your approach if you learn that only 60% understand a concept? So this is the point of giving lots of low stakes quizzes and assessments. And by low stakes, I mean 3 questions after you present a concept that are non-graded, but you can see if the students are understanding a foundational concept, especially early in your course. This will help you tremendously. And Dave Denny does a great job of walking you through these. And he did a session on it, and it's available online to look at how to do data analytics inside of Blackboard right now and look at whether a question you're asking is a good question. But Dave also talks about using the data after you find out that a question is not a good question and how to use that data to construct a better question. And that's something that sounds like we're pointing a finger at a faculty member or we're making an accusation. We're not. We want you to use that information to move forward, because at that point, one of the things that I heard said to Dave in a session was, well, what good does that do us? That doesn't help those students. But I would say to that teacher, you're not just teaching this class this one time. You're going to teach this in the future. And this all builds towards you building a version of your class where you can see see along a timeline a pass rate and an understanding rate for individual questions that will increase. And like I said, Dave can point you to those tools much better than I can. And so I'm going to point you to Dave to ask that question. That's going to be one that I would suss up to Dave. But your goal is to evaluate the learning of every student in every class, preferably multiple times. So by speaking less and asking more of all students, you avoid allowing your impression of the course's progress to be set by a few students who appear to understand the material. Rather, you are obtaining evidence about the learning of all students equally. If you teach a class with a large enrollment, don't feel overwhelmed by the idea of multiple assessments. And this would go into the thing about 3 questions. If you ask 3 questions at the beginning of, or excuse me, after you're presenting a concept, and it's a non-graded exam, 6 weeks in the future, you're going to know who those students are who are on top of things and really grasping this concept, because they're going to be at the top of your class. But 6 weeks in, you'll know a lot more about the students who are in that fun part of the B curve, fun part of the C curve, fun part of the D curve, or however you want to put that. And this will help you restructure learning opportunities for them, like we were talking about in principle number 3 and 2 of universal design and learning. But only by taking the time to look, that's when we get to that point where we're able to take that time that we looked through these tools like multiple low stakes assessments and quizzes and things, surveys built in a Word document, or excuse me, in a Microsoft form. These will give you insight into your teaching and your students' learning that will help you grow your class in a really effective way. Which brings us to thing 2, which is survey your students. So at the beginning of the semester, ask students what makes them feel included in a course. Check in again during the middle of the semester to find out what they think could be improved. This ties to race, ethnicity, and age, excuse me. In this way, when we talk about these things, age could be somebody in my age bracket who's not engaged with technology like I am. I'm going to use my wife here as an example, and who's presented with a tool inside of an online class. And they go, I don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand where I'm supposed to type. And that could be, that's you addressing ADA compliance in relation to age. And so those are ways of garnering that information early on. And by opening up a survey and saying, a simple survey like 3 questions, and say, are you comfortable with technology? Rate yourself on a scale of totally comfortable, sort of comfortable, not comfortable at all. And that may seem generic, but it'll give you insight into what may be happening a couple of weeks or a couple of days after you give that survey when you introduce a new teaching method in an online environment to your students. And that information may give you a chance to say to them, hey, if you found yourself making a 60 on this last assignment, and it was because you couldn't engage with the tool successfully, reach out to me and let me know what you were struggling with. That will help you change that structure and build another opportunity for them to be successful, which relates back to that principle in universal design, where you're creating multiple and diverse opportunities for students to engage content. So survey your students. That can be in a survey, like you can literally go into Microsoft Forms, which is part of our Office suite. You can create a form that is a survey that the information will come right back to you on a spreadsheet. You can embed that in each of your classes. We can show you how to do that. We are happy to do that, and we are happy to talk to you about embedding surveys or forms inside of your course at any time. And that's the tools part of that right there. And then thing 3 is when you collect that data, use the data you collect to formulate ideas and questions. You can talk to your campus supports that can help you talk to your campus support staff. So that would be administrators, peers, Center for Teaching and Learning, etc. And I include myself in there as an instructional designer and Dave in there as an instructional designer. I also include faculty in there like Natalie and Allegra, I think they're still in here. They're department chairs, and those two ladies help faculty constantly. I think I work a lot, and I get told that a lot, but I can't even fathom how much those people work, because they are constantly teaching their classes, teaching all of their students, usually a full load, though I think that maybe they have one class off. But then they're constantly doing these webinars, hosting these events, reaching out to faculty on a daily basis, answering questions from faculty after we do these types of presentations, and helping them become more effective and sharing their knowledge, but also sharing the wealth of understanding of tools and the use of those tools. Sitting in a session and showing them how to use things. That's what we're here for. The instructional design team is here to support you. Katie Lebinsky, I saw, signed into this thing early. So hi, Katie. And Katie is one of our new instructional designers, and she has a ton of teaching experience. So she's got a ton of hands-on experience, and she's very Blackboard aware. So she can give you insight into using tools inside of Blackboard in a big way. And so her email is Catherine Lebinsky, but she goes by Katie. So if you just start typing that in, Catherine, you'll see Lebinsky come up, and that's one of our new IDs. So I want to get her name out there so y'all are aware of her. And so once you collect that data and you share it, and administrators may sound like I'm saying become a kiss up or something like that, but if you let your administrators know that we are starting to get much more open communication between campuses, and we're starting to get much more open communication between administrators, and that is helping us build that one college model where you can reach out across the college and go, hey, apparently they have a bunch of instructional designers full-time on staff over here helping faculty at the Connect campus. So we are here to help you. Wow, I'm actually doing pretty good on time. I'm surprised. So I want to leave you with that thought. Then the next thing I want to point you to is this. And I go much more into detail on this in a session that I have on CAST. And I just want to point you to this organization if you're not familiar with it. It stands for the Center for Applied Special Technology. Was started in the 1980s as technology started to go past mimeograph machines and overhead projectors and started to become like Oregon Trail and those things like that. And this is a great place to go. When you first click on it, you're going to go, it just looks like a website, but click around and find the parts of it where you can go in and you can actually submit your assignments and links to your assignments and get feedback from instructors who are teaching the exact same subject matter you are, and they will give you insights into how they build things out. People share stuff all the time. There are a ton of people on there sharing content in Blackboard. Whenever I'm looking for something, this is one of the first resources I go to. When I want to help a faculty member, I'll go, oh, you teach that? Let me go look on CAST, and I'll look in this, psychology or whatever, whoever it is I'm talking to, and kind of poke around in there and look for somebody I'm familiar with or somebody who's got a lot of good reviews, and start using that to build out strategies with faculty members, up to and including even like when I'm looking at how to train for the new LMS, there are faculty members on there who are part of the training model for all the institutions who have merged with, or who have transitioned to a new LMS, and they've got all kinds of strategies that relate to pedagogy on there. And so that's a great organization. Can't stress enough that I want you to look at that. Why we should think of universal design. Institutions of higher education have the ethical responsibility of providing learning opportunities to all. So I am one of the most hopeful and altruistic, and yet at the same time cynical and jaded people you'll ever meet. So I'm very confused and have a lot of problems. My two favorite things are, Batman and and major philosopher. So I'm very confused. So that's the reason there. Institutions of higher education have the ethical responsibility of providing learning opportunities to all. But here's the real truth of it. If we are only changing the world for some, we are not changing the world. So the times that we live in now, all politics and everything aside, we have an opportunity to move forward and be more unified in our understanding of things. Because when I'm giving to somebody else, I'm not taking from somebody else to give to somebody else, especially in our world. I'm a big believer in the only thing you really own in this world is the about 8 cubic piece of 8-inch cubic piece of real estate that you own in the middle of your head. Anything else can be taken away from you. The shirt off your back, your house, your car, everybody in your life can be taken away from you. But what you own in your head, what you learn, what you put in your skull is the last thing you have in this world. It's the last thing that goes away before they put you in a box. And I think it's important to understand that we are the curators of that, and we are the proprietors of that. And when I say curators, I mean it in the museum sense. We are taking students and walking them through and showing them things and opening their eyes up to things. And in doing that, we change the world. And it's better to change it for everybody than it is to just try and change it for a few. So with that may sound preachy. I don't mean it to. I bring us to, and I can't believe I did this. I bring us to questions. I got us to questions. And what time is it? That is the best timing on a presentation I've ever done in my life. So I'm really excited. So if y'all have questions, I'm going to quit sharing my screen, and I'm going to open up my window to find a bunch of messages saying, Austin, you haven't been presenting. We can't hear you. That being said, Dave, Allegra, Natalie, we are all here for questions. So if people want to just holler out questions or whatever, I'm open for that.
Hey, Dave, I thought you said Austin was going to be presenting something.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened to him.
I went and got a Coke. Are we starting yet? But yeah, I hope that covered everything. And like I said, I don't want you to think we're not being specific. I want you to be excited about Canvas moving forward. Allegra does too, Natalie does too, Dave does too, KD does too. We're very excited about that tool, but that doesn't mean we're not going to talk to you about Blackboard in the real world right now. So if you have any questions, or if you have questions and you want to get with us in a one-on-one session, just remember our email addresses and we'll be happy to reach out to you.
But yes, we have plenty of time for questions, so lay them on us.
Yeah, I'm going to start. So what's the best way? Let's say you're looking at something that you want to use, like if it's Flipgrid or Padlet or something new. Besides emailing either of you to say, hey, is this tool compliant? Is there a great way to check that?
Yes, that's a great question, Natalie. Any technology now that is engaged in an online environment has a VPAT, which is I always forget what VPAT stands for. Let me open up that email. But it's all companies now have a VPAT, and you can request a VPAT from them. It's a voluntary product accessibility template. And so if you have like Padlet or anything else like that, if you just go to Google and put in VPAT Padlet, it should bring up the resources that the company has for that. So accessibility and Padlet comes up as the second choice in Google whenever I Google that, VPAT Padlet. And so that should walk you through their accessibility requirements. If something comes up to you as a challenge in a company like that, then you need to Google VPAT and tool names. Thank you. If something comes up for you as a challenge and it's not meeting a student's need, then you type an email to the company at their contact information and say, I'm requesting that you make notes of this and give us your VPAT for this technology. And they should come back to you to meet that requirement, that accessibility need. That is part of the agreement that they sign up. The VPAT is actually kind of a legal document that is part of their business model that says that they're going to meet the accessibility requirements of online students with their product, so that you as the faculty are not doing that. And so that's a great question, Natalie. And to belabor it and to scare you, but not to scare you, I will say that if you ever are, asked by a student, hey, I'm using this technology and it doesn't have an accessibility standard that meets my needs. If it's a technology that the district has approved and is purchased, then the district will host the liability for that. However, if it's something you introduced into your course, and I say this because I'm not going to name the institution, but it's a local institution. They got dinged on this in a big way, and there's a lawsuit that's going to be ongoing and ultimately will be settled in the students' benefit. A faculty member did introduce some technology that they had got a free account with, and when they were challenged about it by the student, they were not considerate, I'll just say that, in their approach with the student. And so the student filed a lawsuit, and it went after the faculty member because it wasn't something that was authorized by the school district, by the institution. It was not a software that the institution had funded and had made part of their curriculum. And so be very careful with that. When you're introducing a tool into your course, I'm not doing this to discourage you, but look for the accessibility requirements of it. Because I just met with some faculty who are in a very hands-on program here in the district. And they are in this deep into the semester, and they just had a student who the three of them share who identified a need because they got to a place in the semester in this hands-on course where the students' accessibility need became overwhelming to the student. And so we're going through the process in a very practical, step-by-step, just listening to them tell me what they do and how we can make that accessible for the student approach. And it's been successful. It's been a journey and a weird thing because it's not something I would say they could ever teach you. It's a situation where it's like, oh, wow, this is a landscaping course. And how do we deal with this issue? And we've had to, and especially in the age of COVID, we've had to do some very interesting reestablishing of the course model. So it can be that specific, just so you know. But that's a great question, Natalie. Sorry. Grace Ellis just asked, is there a way to get CC or transcript for Blackboard Collaborate videos? There is. You want to think about teaching in an asynchronous environment, not a synchronous environment, first and foremost. But Grace, if you will make sure that whenever you set up those sessions, they are able to be downloaded as a video file, then you just send the link to me. So you want to click that button that says can download, send the Collaborate session to me. I will get it uploaded and transcribed for you, and I will send you back a link that you can post directly into your Blackboard course. And then in the future, that's a great question, Grace. In the future, we will have a video platforming system that you will be able to get closed captioning on there yourselves, and you will take me out as the middleman, and hopefully I'll be one of the people training you on that tool, but it'll be a lot more user-friendly. But yes, Grace, I hope that answers your question. Anybody else, if you just reach out to me, Austin, AUSTIN.Haynes, HAYNES, @tccd.edu. She gave me the thumbs up symbol. Seriously, just make sure that when you set up your sessions, under settings, when you're setting up the Blackboard Collaborate session, there's two settings up there at the top. One of them's got the little gear. It's two tabs when you're setting up the session. Click on the gear and make sure that you click the button that says you will be able to download this recording. When you're done recording, just send me the link for that Blackboard Collaborate session in an email. I will download it, get it captioned to you, and send you back a link that you'll be able to embed right into your course.
What if I have multiple?
Grace, Mondays are my big day, and today was the best Monday I've had in a while, and I had a little under 100. I had 78 videos I downloaded today, so you will be fine. If you want to send me the links, and I generally try and turn it around in an hour or two when you send them to me. If on Monday mornings I get up super early because it's always just like this morning I started downloading at 5 before I went on a walk. And then once I get everything downloaded, I got it set up in some automation to do it. But if you send me links, when you say a lot, you may mean 3 or 2 or something like that. But I have one professor who's way over 1,000 videos now.
I'm definitely in like the 50s, maybe.
Yeah, you're fine. No, I have a English or a history teacher who this summer when all this happened, she was awesome, and I forget what her name was, Anderson. But anyways, we went through this, and she goes, "Oh, I'm going to send you a lot, Austin," and she did. I think she was by the end of the summer, she was almost 500. But sorry, my dog was chewing on my door. She had about 500 or so by the end of December, but that's fine. If it makes you successful in your course, that's what we're here for. So I want to help you. So yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You bet. Natalie, you have a question?
I have one more. I haven't used Stream a lot myself, but if you do use Stream, it will automatically caption it. Is that right?
Yes. And if you leave it in Stream, though, there is still problems with us that are not getting to students. I hate to be negative here, but I just saw this last week that if you're just using the Stream link, I've still had students been able to see the stream session successfully, and they're getting that warning. So I do think Stream is great, but I just think there's still some administrative stuff that's set up, and depending on whenever the students set up their account is maybe the best guess I can make right now why those issues arise. And I would just hate for you to put a video in and have a student on Sunday night click on it, get that warning message, and and not be able to finish an assignment, and then you have to go through all of that rigmarole. But yes, Stream does have captioning in it, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's anytime you're making a video, yes, and Ileana, I can get you that. If you'll reach out to me in email, I'll send you that accessibility checker webinar. If you when you're presenting in Collaborate or something like that, if you'll be very conscious of your speaking tone, and also, it sounds crazy, but when you're presenting every once in a while, just introduce this thought into your head, period, meaning, so we're going to talk about this today, and then mentally say to yourself, period, just like you would if you were trying to make sure you got a period on a Word document if you were using the speech-to-text feature. It does slow you down, and it does help the captioning engine to be much more successful, because that's the one thing that's challenging still is, and I'm sure I would be very guilty of this in closed captioning, is punctuation gets ran over in that. It just does, because we're just very extemporaneous speakers as educators, and so we can end up running over our own presentations. Sorry. Any other questions?
No, I was just going to add, Austin, that speaking slowly in a video is actually a really good idea.
Yes.
It will help all of the students you have who want you to speak more slowly, and your students who are very fast verbal processors, they can put you at 1.5 or 2 times the speed in YouTube. So if you're talking too slowly for some of your students know how to speed you up. There is no setting in YouTube to slow you down.
Yes.
And if there is, it makes you sound like a goblin.
Are drunk.
Yeah. So it's better to just speak a little bit more slowly than you would normally. And that way you're making, again, it's kind of universal. So students who need it more slowly can get it. And then a lot of our students, my students tell me all the time they play my videos at 1.5 and it doesn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Like a lot. Just hurts them a little bit, but yeah.
It's great. And and Allegra's voice there, even her cadence was very presentation steady is what they call it. And all of this stuff, just so you know, is you're not doing it wrong. That's the thing I want to say to you. None of you are teaching your class wrong unless you're just doing something, like a troglodyte or something like that. What you're doing is you're teaching, and we have all been thrust into this pedagogy of crisis of COVID. And I would say that we're all challenged by what we're being presented with. But I got to say, and I don't say this so that y'all just think, man, that guy was really nice and cool and stuff like that. I've been impressed with the faculty, because mostly we dealt with online faculty because that's just was the nature of our business. But because of COVID, I've had to deal with faculty throughout the district, and everybody I've worked with, without exception, honestly, has done great. And I mean, this, we don't have problems that I see in other institutions I work with, and I mean that sincerely. But that being said, I do want to say, because this has been one of the things that I took away from the beginning of this, all these things that you're learning are going to make your face-to-face classes even more valuable to you, and you're going to really enjoy these things because people talk about what's going to happen, and eventually COVID's going to end, and y'all are going to go back to the class. And I'm not saying that because I want to lose you. I'm saying that because I want you to use these tools in practicality. And when you go back to class, the people who are going to be seeing their job, duties slow down are going to be things like the print center, because I don't think many people are going to be handing out, pieces of paper anymore. So I use that example quite frequently to let you know that everything that you're learning now is just going to be, something you're going to use when you go back into the classroom. So, let that wash over you and think about that. Think about how you're going to integrate this, because if you make a really cool video presentation of a key concept in your course, when a student doesn't understand it and they walk up to you at the end and go, man, I just really didn't get that, you can go, hey, I'm going to say Daniel because that's just in my name or in my head right now. Hey, Daniel, in the online course, let me show you something. And you can point them to the section on bats and say, I go over this again in here, and there's some pictures and some ideas in here, and there's a cartoon or whatever. And I want to point you this. And then when you come back, let me know when you've watched that. And then when you come back, let me know if that helped answer your questions. And that's just another way, another representation of teaching. And that's one of the principles of UDL. And that's what this is about. This is about y'all being able to do that kind of stuff in that way. And it just, like I said, makes you more wonderful at what it is you're already wonderful at. So
Natalie posted a link in the chat to the attendance form. And so if you missed that, just scroll up and click on it. And I posted a visual here so you can see the events we have for National Distance Learning Week this week. And if you need information about any of these sessions, just let us know.
Exactly. And I want to close by saying you couldn't ask for a better endorsement than from a person named Anita Hope, because that sounds like the most optimistic name in the world. Anita Hope. I need a hope. So we all have hope. We all have things going forward. And thank you very much for attending. I always appreciate your time. Anytime you're willing to listen to us chatter on here, please realize that we do value your time, and we want you to know that we're here to help you. So let us know. Dave and I are here. And thank you very much. And Allegra's here, and Natalie's here too. I don't mean to dismiss them either. But thank y'all. Y'all take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Austin and Dave. That was really informative.